Tyler Road, virtual threat, keystroke kill, identity hidden, I fulfill. Cyber assassin, that's my prowl. Codes in hand, you'll fall. Hack and strike, chaos I make. Cyber realm, my domain to take.
So me and the little dog are enjoying a walk in the wash. A wash that is in the old neighborhood, a place I used to live quite a few years ago. It was about 7 years ago. And I'd come walk this wash quite a bit back then. Pick up some really nice jasper, petrified wood, marble. It's a wide variety of stone out here. And, you know, it's been a while since I've been out here. This trench is so much deeper. It used to be pretty flat with just a little ravine, but they've built the lots across the street of Wilmot here are all populated now. They've subdivided and built the entire thing into neighborhoods, which causes all the watershed to be funneled. And that water is just obviously tearing through here when it rains and has greatly changed what this was. 3 feet lower or 4 feet lower than it used to be, which is whatever. It reveals a whole lot more stone. You know, there's a lot more new stuff to see here. But every time I get into the washes, you know, and I have these wash walk days, it also is telling me something about weather, rain. You know, we had these flood events going on around Globe, Miami, you know, all these places, Wickenburg, I think. These places that are, you know, north of Tucson, northwest of Tucson. We're having these huge flood events. You know, this is Arizona, you know, we're in the desert here. But, you know, I was told in my teen years that Arizona is slowly becoming more temperate zone. Like the climate south of us is moving north, where Hermosillo, Mexico used to be the line of tropical zone, like the jungle ended. Now it seems to me personally that the jungle has made a procession northward up almost all the way to Nogales, or maybe even closer, maybe past Tubac. And every year, you know, the monsoons are less pronounced. And at the same time, our rain events are scattered throughout the year more and more, where it used to just be the monsoons. You know, just 2-3 months of the year we get downpour. Now, we don't get these huge downpour events anymore. We get these throughout the year. We're getting rain. Well, I was watching the news this morning and they're talking about this huge flood event that's incoming for Arizona. We've got a hurricane down off Baja coming up, and then supposedly storms coming off the west coast headed this way, as well as, you know, things coming from the north down that are dropping in that are probably going to start causing a consolidation event where we get cold and hot and, you know, all these mixtures. So where we're getting tornadoes around Tucson, you know, a couple years ago, we had a lot of tornadoes here in Tucson. We haven't had that this summer, which is cool. I don't care for tornadoes in Arizona. I didn't want to endure tornadoes in Tucson. Is ridiculous. But here comes a hurricane. It's not going to be a hurricane by the time it hits us, but what they're saying is it can drop a whole lot of slow saturating water. And I brought this up in another walk wash video that I made of, you know, you get several days of rain and the ground saturates because of our caliche layer, and it just stops accepting water into the ground, and it's all watershed, and it starts to flood. And again, you know, just like I said the other time, Yeah, we live in the desert, but we're also not built as far as the cities for the infrastructure of dealing with that amount of water, okay? So whenever we do get that kind of water, it's catastrophic. It is a flood event that nobody's prepared for. And I just want to say, we have time. We have time. It's time to consider where you live. If you're in a low-lying area where you're close to a lot of washes and runoff, you should definitely consider your ways out. Be prepared, especially things that you consider valuable. Consider, how do you get to them and get them out? Or maybe you just get them out and have them already prepared for exit strategy. Prepare your exit strategies. Don't try to figure it out on the fly. When you have time, it's like Boy Scouts say, always be prepared. What is the harm when you have time in taking consideration and preparation for an event that could be incoming? When you have the time, it's the time. And right now we all do. Okay, I don't live in a flood area myself, so I'm not really too concerned. But, I do care for people in general, and the public here in Tucson. We definitely are not prepared for any major flood events. But it does seem that there's a possibility. I mean, they just got hit in Wickenburg. They definitely were not ready in Miami, Arizona, up in the northern areas, Globe and stuff. They were not ready whatsoever. Their infrastructure, nor the people. They're just not expecting that. But just because it's never happened in your lifetime doesn't mean you shouldn't consider and prepare, okay? So I've beat that horse to a sufficient death. I'm good with it. Just rock hounding in the wash here, checking out what it is, and it obviously has dropped a lot. I'm not seeing a lot of what I normally would here. Has obviously been washed away. So I'm gonna walk a good distance here, and this little guy's having a ball. Everything out here, huh, Deej? What do you smell? He smells coyotes, javelina, squirrels, rabbits, and then, the homeless that live in the desert here, their clothes and their leavings that have washed down the wash. There used to be a lot of people living out in the desert here, but Tucson's one of those places. It's becoming developed. It's filling up. People are moving out of California and, up north. We have a lot of Canadians that winter here. A lot of snowbirds that come from other places to here to stay during the winter because it's perfect during the winter. But a lot of those people are coming up against, I want to say, tyranny. They are gun confiscating in Canada now. They're going after the public's ability to protect their rights. They're definitely seizing the ability for anyone to resist. And if you don't see it that way, you see it in the guise of protection, well, check it out. Giving up your freedom for security is fake. That's not a real option. I mean, anybody who says, we got to get rid of guns because people are using guns to kill people. Well, you look at any of these places where guns are illegal already and have been for a long time, and you'll see, if you have your eyes open, the guns aren't the problems. The criminals are gonna have guns anyways, illegal or not. Especially if the guns are illegal because they know that you don't have a gun. So if they have the guts and the nuts to carry a firearm, then you are at a disadvantage to them, and they will absolutely use it to their advantage to take what they want from you, and you can't do anything about it. That's why I love Arizona and, America in general. The majority of this country still reserves the right to have and bear arms of any sort. that considers all things, swords, knives, guns of any kind, concealed, registered, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can have a gun in this state. You can have any weapon in this state as long as you're not using it unlawfully and brandishing it and trying to be a dickhead, thinking you're really cool and bad and big and trying to scare people with your gun as if it gives you power. It isn't a status symbol. It's not a power symbol. It's not something to be greater than and scare people and take advantage of people. It is about sovereignty and protection and the ability to impose your freedom against tyranny and against others who want to take your life or take your possessions unlawfully. I mean, do we have gun violence here? Yeah, we do, but there's a greater chance that if somebody uses a gun in an offensive manner, that someone else may also have a gun and may be able to come out and protect the public. You got these places where people have an idea of attacking people and they go after them with their gun, and then what do you know? Somebody in the public whips out theirs and drops them. Problem solved. They didn't have to wait for a police officer or anything like that. A member of the public can be the savior of the day. Not just to be the savior, just because, violence sometimes begets violence in a positive way. Stopping someone from killing nice, happy people who are just living their lives and enjoying the day, and then all of a sudden some dickhead decides he's going to start killing people. Somebody else in the public having the capability of stopping them right there on the spot is a good thing. Taking that horrible person's life or just disabling them so that they can no longer cause any more pandemonium isn't a bad thing at all. And it's actually, why we have police officers and why I want to think, didn't defund the police like we have seen in a lot of these places that are having such just horrible, awful problems with crime and lawlessness, which they brought upon themselves. You enable criminals and you don't have consequences for actions, then why not act poorly? It's like raising children and you never spank them. You never give them consequences. You just let them do what they will and you tell them it's wrong, but there's no real consequence. Then they're going to still behave in the undesired manner, okay? And when you're just talking, basic respect and, being a good person and, listening to the things that you should be doing, like doing your chores or helping out around the house and that kind of stuff. And the kid's just like, no, I'm not going to. Well, there should be consequences. But if there's no consequences, then you're basically teaching them that there is no reason not to do whatever you want. And that's a dangerous road. That goes to a scary place where people start doing things against others for their own betterment, and they don't consider that if it were done to them, they wouldn't appreciate it. That whole thing of do unto others as you will have done unto you. I mean, some people have never taken that to heart and never will. But lawful, repercussions have always been there in most places, have been taken away. And we're seeing the aftermath. We're seeing the consequences of that in mostly the cities where you do have strict gun laws. I mean, if there's any poster child for gun confiscation being the wrong way to go, just look at the places that have strict gun laws. Those are the places that are doing the worst, the most lawless, the most criminalized, the places with the most gun rights and the freedom of the citizens to live and protect themselves as sovereign humans, well, we have the most freedom still. We have the least problems because someone in the public can deal with it. You don't have to worry so much about the police. You got to worry about the public. Well, same goes true for general policy throughout the world. I want to say that if there were ever an invasion of America by other countries, the only thing that keeps them worried is the public is armed. And the places that have the most lenient weapons and guns rights are the places that they're going to be the most concerned about trying to invade, because they know that the public could, at the drop of the hat, mobilize, and they'd be facing a civil army, not just a government army. An armed public is a deterrent, and it should not only be allowed, it should be proliferated and helped along, promoted. Because we, the people, own this country and this land, not the people who are in charge, who we've supposedly elected. They're not the ones who truly own it. They're supposed to be acting on our behalf, not us reacting to their decisions. Nobody's asked me ever, other than voting, which, I don't know, I really have a weird feeling that my input a lot of times in the voting process is negated by whatever they decide to do anyways as a greater group. You know, the left and the right, are they real? Is the left and the right a real thing? Or is it all just the left and the right arm of the same creature? You know? It's like God. Is God good or evil, or both? Is there a devil or is there a God, or are they both just the left and the right arm of the same deity? I wonder. I do wonder. I feel that way about our government as well. When you really look at it bare bones, where one supports publicly the things that don't truly matter, like gay rights and, you know, all of our personal feelings and propping up of ideologies on big policies that are ruling our existence as a country, they're pretty much aligned, whether it's left or right. They are on alignment with the agenda. So I'm just saying that out loud because there isn't as much separation as they would like us to believe. That's my point. Separation between the two arms is minuscule. And for real people with real ideas to think that we can get in and change things, well, you'd have to be accepted into the group first. And if you don't align with the group, how could you ever be part of the group? You know, if you don't go along, you won't get along, and you won't be let in. So I'm just rambling on about my perspective, and by all means, share yours. You know, I mean, everybody has that right to see it how you will. And that also should be exercised. You know, we shouldn't be intaking the narratives that the squawk box television media is telling you. You know, filter it through your own lens. Consider it through your own ideals, ideologies, thought processes. Don't just intake it. Intake it and process it. Consider it. Think of, what does it really mean? I mean, go a deeper step. I know it takes a little thought process and time and energy outside of sitting down and watching your football game or whatever distractions we like to impose on ourselves so we don't have to think or have to see or have to feel, you know, whether it be our drugs, our alcohol, our sex, our entertainment. It's all bread and circus, folks. Brought to you by the Roman civilization, you know. They give them bread and circus and you will have peace and calm and certitude. A quiet public is a controlled public, but a thoughtless public is a powerless public. A public who is told and listens is nothing more than slaves. You're trying to enslave the world, folks, if you don't pay attention and see it. Look around. Listen to what they're saying on the news through the eyes of there's a global takeover and we're losing. Except right here in certain parts of the states, we still have our freedoms. We still have our rights. We have countries that have been taking efforts to take our rights here, and they're not even from here, you know? Like China standing up in the UN years ago and saying, you must disarm your public. Who fucking gave you a right to have 10, 15 cents of input on what we should do here? You have your own country. Fuck up your own people. Run it your way, you know what I mean? You want to put people in sweatshops and fucking slave labor them and treat them like, you know, they're owned? Like they have no sovereignty? Well, I mean, nobody's stopping you, obviously, and there's certain parts of our own government that thinks that's a good idea. They think they have a good plan and a good system. They go right along with it, you know? There's this offshoot of just walking on this path here, and all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, bro. There's this whole other thing going on. It's tight. Interesting. Well, little canyon in the wash just looked like a little tiny crack in the wall, but it actually goes back about 30, 40 feet. That's tight. But tell you what, we have the right to think for ourselves and speak our minds and the right to bear arms to protect ourselves and our property, and we all should exercise it everywhere. The cities who go against it and have given the rights to criminals to be criminals and without prosecution, you know, they can steal and rob and not be prosecuted and do all these stupid things with no worries of repercussion. Well, don't you see the problem? All the people are moving away. And I've thought about that several times. I'm like, well, why would they do such a thing? Why would they decriminalize drugs in Oregon? Why would they allow petty theft in California? I mean, all these beautiful places were burning down, fires and all this stuff. It's as if they've been clearing the land. They've been pushing out the public, moving all those who are capable away. The rich and the business owners are leaving in droves because they can, and they're leaving behind the people who have no means. And I think eventually they're all going to be wiped out. And then you'll have cheap land again in California. I mean, there's parts of Northern California where you can homestead. You can go live on the coast. There's no utilities or anything, and people are just living out there, you know? How long is that going to be permitted? It makes me wonder if we've given some of the lands over past presidencies to China, and China is the one that's burning these neighborhoods and, you know, pushing these policies that devalue the entire state so that the property value will be low enough for them to start buying it all cheap. I mean, block busting's a real thing. There's laws against it for good reason. There's a name. It's called block busting. Yeah, look it up. People do it. Except on the scale of an entire state or an entire western coastline. I mean, I've never, not in my lifetime, never heard of it in the past either, but, well, here I am thinking outside of the box again, seeing things from my own lens, and who knows, am I completely off base? Maybe. Am I touching on truth? Maybe. Am I able to just speak my mind and have free thought? Yeah. Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say these things, because I see it that way. I see it as a possibility, and I'm not gonna not say what I think because, well, spirit guides. Spirit guides, spirit provides. It provides thoughts and interests and ideas, and well, it's up to us to open our eyes and see it and think it and feel it and allow it in, let it to flow through. But I gotta say, the letting go of the social media and the, television's perspective of all the frickin' news and all that stuff, letting that go allows you to think yourself, your own thoughts. I mean, do I not take in some? Yeah, I want to be apprised of what's going on in the world. It's not like I am not aware of current events. And I think it's very important to be on top of what's happening. That's why I bring up the flood events that could be incoming to Arizona. But it is also why I bring up my theories of what's going on and the truth behind it, possibly. I mean, maybe I'm completely off base. That's possible, and I'm not above admitting that.